All right, so I think we can start now. So, what we'll do is I have few interesting examples from classical games and a few from my own collection. We'll start with one or two positions from my own collection, and then we will see a classical game to understand pawn play in a bit more detail. So let's start with this. So this is the position, and I think 2.5 minutes will be a good start for this position. I will put a twist. And yeah, so you have about 2.5 minutes in this position. Let's do some a warm up of sort, and then we can go ahead. All right, let's go ahead. So quite a few pawn moves were made. A4, a takes b4, h6, e6, e5, and okay, there was also rook a7. So now, how should we decide? Basically, so what's so let's have some discussion about pawn play in general. So so the unique thing about pawn play is that pawn moves are irreversible. So basically, I think good number of you might know um, Mark Doretsky. So he was a very famous coach. And I think good number of you might know Arthur Yusupov as well, was some very strong grandmaster. So I think they had written a book, and then there was a chapter called Admitting Your Mistakes. So it was sometimes what happens is that we make a move with a piece and with a certain objective in our mind, and after making the move, we realize that okay, we might have made um, some wrong assumption or some wrong calculation or something because of which it doesn't work. Sometimes what happens is that when we choose that wrong plan to play, and some players just they don't admit that okay, it is a wrong path. Let's just go back where we were and then let's make a new plan. So those type of things can be done with the pieces. I think maybe one of the webinar's topic at some point I'll have is admitting your mistakes. So that will be an interesting thing. But that is just a discussion for some other day. So the point which I'm trying to make is that sometimes when we make a certain piece move, we can just bring it back, and then of course it will cost us some tempos, but we can just bring it back and then start new. In some positions it's possible, but that's not the case with pawn moves. Pawn moves are irreversible, so for that reason they're extremely responsible in the nature. Now, if we just talk about a takes b4, now what we are doing, we are releasing the tension and then opening up the a5. It's a good question, and to whose advantage it will be. We have to see that. Now, then some of you played a4. It will be like, okay, should I close the queen side or should I not do it? But then the third option is not capturing the b4 pawn, not playing a4, and then playing something else. So that is maintaining the tension. But each and every pawn move changes certain things in the position. You can say that, okay, I want to play e6 and strengthen this pawn. But the drawback of this is the bishop was not that active and it's even becoming worse. So you have to compare like which one is which. And you can't say, okay, I want to go to e7 and activate the bishop. No, that's a done thing. So now coming back to this position, we have so many pawn moves. So which one should we try to do? So we should not try to look this in an isolated manner. We should try to look at it from the piece perspective. Now, if you look at this position, then it becomes clear that you have double bishop advantage. So what do we need to do about it? So when we have double bishop advantage, we should try to open the position through pawn breaks. Now, what are the potential pawn breaks we have available? So that's okay. We have this, so we can play takes b4. But how does that help our bishop? It doesn't. We can play c5, but that's just free pawn. We can play e5 directly, but that's also free pawn because we have just one, two, and three attackers while he already has three different. So that won't. So then what we need to do? We need to plan for that. We need to plan for that particular pawn break, which would activate our bishops, and that is e5. So how do we plan for it? We just play f6 in this position. And then we should play e5. Now the question will be, but that makes the bishop bad. But that's a temporary thing. So it's once you play e5, now your opponent will have some tough questions to answer. Because let's say rook a d1 is played, then sorry, e5 is played. Now, if your opponent captures, and then you won't take e4 immediately because some bishop takes e4, some discovered attack might come, some this pawn is played. So, but you don't want to. So you're in a hurry. You can play queen c7 and then e4, queen f6, and then e4. You already have got the control of the center, and the moment e4 will be played, this bishop will be. So, and if your opponent says, okay, I don't want to play this, I want to play something like, let's say, you play queen b2, removing the queen, and then e5, and then he's like, okay, I don't want to take. Then what you can do is you can play e4, then you can play f5, then you can play f4, and then let's start pushing on the king side. Then when we play f3, this bishop will play an important role in here. So basically, to decide which pawn move to make depends a lot upon how the position is. Because here you are looking for the central pawn break. You are looking for that e5 pawn break because you want to open the position. You want to activate your bishop. So that's how the pawn play is decided based on how the position is. Later, I'll show you one very instructive game between Spassky and Petrosian, and then we'll see what was the objective behind the pawn play. But the most important thing, you should not be like, okay, let me just make this pawn move or this pawn exchange or this pawn break. No, we should have a logical reason behind that. And then what I'll try to show today is I'll try to show you different types of positions where how we're looking at the strength of our pieces or the weaknesses in opponent's position or sometimes weaknesses in our position. We decide which pawn move to make and which pawn move to not make. Now, let me go ahead with this position. So quite an interesting one. So go here. All right. Once again, black to play. You will get 3 minutes, and after this, we might shift to some games. So now this please think black to play, and your time starts now. Please try to understand what type of position is it, and how can you improve your position with the help of pawn play. All right. So majority of you played the correct idea. Well done. So if you remember the previous discussion, then you would notice also the same thing here. Double bishops are there. But here we want to activate them for another reason. White's king is extremely weak. And one thing which you should remember is that when you have double bishop advantage, you want to especially activate the bishop which your opponent does not have. Your opponent has dark square bishop, but if you activate your light square bishop, then it will be very difficult for your opponent to stop your counter. C4, this C5. And once the bishop comes to this diagonal, that will be extremely difficult position for your opponent to defend. So yeah, but it's good to see that most of you found the idea. So because I deliberately kept the position similar to the previous one where double bishops are the common theme, I wanted to see that okay, after our earlier position that the majority of you would get it or not. But I'm glad to see that you did. Now we will shift to the Petrosian game, which I wanted to discuss. So this was from the World Championship match 1966. Now, let's the starting position. It's quite a bit of a complicated game, but you can learn quite a few things from that, especially about pawn play. A beautiful game about pawn play. So Spassky is white, Petrosian is black, and yeah, as you can see, quite an imbalanced position. So I'll give you some time here. Just try to understand this and then what to do. So just 3 minutes. There won't be too many quizzes in this game, but at the beginning I want to give you one. So you can think about it and then in detail, I'll explain like what Petrosian played and what was the reason behind that. So, all right, slightly difficult position actually, but quite an interesting one as I said. Some of you played h3. But then I can play g3 and keep the position close. So you can still play h4, but the thing is that white can also try for something on the queen side. So what Petrosian wanted to see, you have clear counterplay on the king side. You can just bring the rook to g8 and then push on, put pressure on g2, h3 will be there, h4 will be there. But what Petrosian wanted to make sure is that Spassky doesn't get any counterplay on the queen side. So he simply doesn't have to look on that side. He can completely focus on the king side. So yeah, he won't have to divert some of the resources there. So what is Spassky's plan in this position? Let's make a random move in this. Let's say rook e8. Let's just try to understand what white is trying to do. So now in this position, missing like a5 is a threat, but that's not the thing in this position. Because if a5, then there is b5, and the position is a bit close. But Spassky's plan was to play b5. Now, the point behind b5 is that now he's ready to play a5, and then a Petrosian will have no option to push this pawn. So he will have to accept the pawn sacrifice, and then maybe Spassky can create some counterplay. Or if he doesn't accept the sacrifice, then a takes d6, then this file might get open and he will. So what he wanted to do was he wanted to stop whatever counterplay Spassky has on the queen side. So he wants to close the queen side as much as possible. So he played a beautiful move, a6. So this seems like an extremely strange move at first. That how does a6 deal with this? But now, if Spassky plays a5, then there is b5, queen side closed. And if he plays b5, then there is a5, queen side is closed. So with just one small pawn move, now Petrosian doesn't have to worry anything about the queen side counterplay. No b5, no a5, nothing. Whenever b5 will be played, a5, a5 will be played, b5, all the counterplay just done with one small pawn move on the queen side. No. But as I said, this was just the beginning of it. Let's see how the game went ahead. So king h1 was played by Spassky. Then black played rook dg8. Now he's not worried about queen side, so he's going for the king side. Rook g1 was played. He played rook g4. Then queen d2 was played. It's improving the position. The piece improvement. He wants to increase the pressure on the king side. Nothing special. A5 was played, of course, just b5. There is no question about it. Then rook a d1 was played. So he played better f8 in this position. So now his plan is if white doesn't do anything, he might play the bishop e7. Then he might play knight e5, or he might want to play f6 at some point. So the problem with f6 was that after he takes f6, the queen along with the bishop would be attacked. So after bishop f8, if he plays f6, then after e takes f6, there is e5, and then he can do something. Once again, I'm not saying immediately he will do it. He has multiple plans which he can work. From then knight h2 was played in this position. He wants this exchange, so but that's fine. He is ready for the exchange sacrifice. He played knight takes e5 in this position. He wants that central point. Knight takes e4, h takes e4, and now he has some initiative on the inside. So e4 was played by Spassky. Spassky is ready to sacrifice. So you don't want to accept this sacrifice because that will be a disaster. Bishop takes e5, queen takes e5, and queen d8. So and if there was no mate, right? I would be slightly skeptical about accepting that sacrifice because I would not want to open this file for my because we have sacrificed an exchange. So of course that white has that extra rook for our minor piece, and we have a bunch of pawns, but still rook versus a minor piece. So why would you want to open the files for that rook which the opponent has? Split bishop e3, bishop d6. And queen e3 was played, and he played knight d7. So he just wants to exchange that. And then bishop d6 was played, queen d6, rook d4. The next pawn move is a bit obvious, so I'll play it. E5, taking control of the center with a tempo. So what? See, it's not like Spassky did not see E5. Spassky, of course, saw E5, but he was like, okay, I'll provoke E5 and then I'll put some pressure on D5 pawn or something like that. But Petrosian had something else in mind. You will get about 3 minutes for this, and so question is black to play. All right, let's go ahead. So some of me actually played the idea what Petrosian did. The move in this position, what he wants to do is, he wants to open the position further. Of course, d takes e4 is not possible. This is there. So what he wants to do is he just doesn't want to focus on this. He wants to focus on diagonals as well. So what he did here, he played f5. So his plan is, if e takes f5 is played in the position, so then he's not in a hurry to play something like d4, but d4 is eventually going to be the plan so that this bishop can. So you can play queen f6, just remove this queen from this potential queen, and then at some point he can play d4 and then activate the bishop. So there will, after h3, not only from the h file the attack will come, but also from the diagonal the attack will come, and that will be way too difficult for white to defend. So this is the pawn play which Petrosian did, because he did not want to just put the pressure through the file, but he wanted to put the pressure through the diagonal as well. But now the question is, what if e takes d5 is played? How does the bishop get active? Because bishop takes d5 would lead to this unpleasant thing. But that's another plan of Petrosian. If the bishop doesn't get active through f5, then he will use the pawn storm to put pressure on Spassky, and that's what happened. F4. Either he would get the pawn storm or the bishop will get active. Then queen e4 was played. Knight f6, bringing the knight into on the king side. Queen f5 check. King b8. In this position, Spassky played f3. He wanted to stabilize the king side a bit. Now bishop c8. So if not from this diagonal, then at least he'll try to do something on this diagonal. And queen b1 was played. So now what he did, he played g3. His plan is now very simple. He wants to play h3 and then open this file, then make use of this g3 pawn as well in the attack. So very simple play. Rook e1. So rook e1 creating escape square for the king, because now the attack will the position is opening up. So in this position, if g takes x3 is played, then there is just very simple chess. g2 check, king g1, and then queen d7. So the queen will join in through h3, then it will come to h1, and the checkmate is inevitable after that. So he played he didn't play g takes h3, he played bishop f1. He's just trying to defend, but there is not much. And rook h8 was played, g takes h3, bishop takes h3, king g1, takes, king takes f1, and then there were a few ways for black to win, but what Petrosian played was quite an elegant one. Let me give you not 3 minutes, maybe 2.5 will be fine. Or let's keep it 3. So black to play in this position, we have some time. What would we? Yeah, some of you found the correct idea. Once again, Petrosian made use of the pawn play, like it did a lot in this game. So he played e4 in this position. The idea is to remove this pawn so that he can push it to f3. Some of you might have rejected it because of rook e4, knight e4, queen e4, thinking that white will sacrifice the exchange and get activity. But actually, you don't need to. Recapture is not compulsory. You play rook h1 and then win the queen. So now f3 pawn is going to go for sure. It's not in Spassky's hand. He can't even play king g2 and hope for like gf3, king f3. Rook h2 will come and then this rook will go. So this is just bad news for him all over. Then after e4, let me. So what he did is he played queen d1. So he's like, okay, if he takes f3, queen takes f3, and then I'll block it. Now, Petrosian played, once again, he has multiple moves to win, but I guess he just wanted to win in a flashy way. I played knight g4. So just another one of his brilliant moves in this game. The knight is coming. Game knight e3 is then knight f2 is then knight h2. So depending upon what white does, he can do something. So of course, the point being that so f takes e4 was played by Spassky. The point being that there is f3. So just these pawns actually on the king side finish the game. The threat is this, And if king g1 is played to stop the mate threat, then there is this queen h6, then queen h1 mate is unstoppable. So what Spassky did? He played rook g2. He thought, okay, let me give up the rook. But then after f takes g2, he resigned because it's just if this king takes g2, then there is this. Just simply rook h2, and then after king g1, you can conveniently queen f4. This is a mate check. If rook f1, then there is queen e3, and then it will be mate just. There are multiple ways in which black can win this game. So quite an interesting game over how we used the pawns from beginning to the end. So it all started with this move a6. So whatever counterplay Spassky was trying to create through the queen side, that is stopped, and then improved his piece position. Of course, you have to improve your piece position, and then he sacrificed an exchange. But this was it was like till, and then here is where once again he started e5 and then f5. At first, he used his pawns to stabilize the queen side, and then now he's using his pawns to increase his attacking chances on the king side. E5, then f5, then f4, and then g3, h3, and then here that brilliant idea of e4, which wins the game for him. And in the end, of course, this knight g4, please sacrifice him. Okay, I'm not sure what's happening. Sorry for this. So and then f3, then the game was over. So a very it's why I showed you this game. It's just to show how we can how Petrosian made use of pawns in different manner. First, for the stabilization of his queen side, so the king cannot be attacked. Second, make use of it for to push on the king side, so he can attack opponent's king. Then third, that d5 move also was important. That f5 move, sacrificing the pawn. So either the pawn storm would come, or the bishop would get active. Both of which would increase his attacking chances. All right. Um, Now I have an example of Petrosian. So the starting position is going to be a bit complicated, but that's fine. I'll give you some time. You can just try to attempt. You can try to understand a bit more and then do it. Let's see here. Okay, let me flip the board. Yeah, so Petrosian was white. Sorry, Botvinnik was white, and he was playing against Vidmar Milan. We have this position, so I will give you 3 minutes for this. Slightly difficult. Try to use your imagination, your creativity. All right. So this was a tough one. Um, but still, I just didn't want to start the explanation without giving you an opportunity to think about it. So um, yeah, quite a few pawn moves were made. Of course, the topic is pawn play, but I didn't want to keep that simple actually. It has to do with pawn play, but you have to prepare. You can't just play b5 because c takes b5 and you don't even have rook c7. There is knight takes c7. That's sneaky knight actually. Or you don't even d5 also doesn't work. You don't want to give up your central pawn just like this. I can even take this. I'm not sure about this. I'll just take it to the rook and active. So that doesn't help you. So it's not b5 and d5. You have to prepare for it. So what you want for b5? But when he wanted to go for that, but he wanted to prepare that. So bishop is already defending that. So that's not a question. Both the rooks are already on the c file. But then there is that one piece. King is also defending this. King is also doing the job. So we can see this is like somewhere in the middle between middle game and end game. But the principles which we will see has more to do with the middle game thing rather than end game one. So like from activity. So this is not fully an end game actually. So but anyway, so what Botvinnik did here, he played knight b1 in this position. So the only piece which was not supporting that b5 thing. So it did, and knight on d2 is not doing anything. Each and every other piece has a function, right? Knight on d2 doesn't have. Then bishop d7 was played, and just knight a3. And knight c7 was played, and then all right. So I'll give you some time here. So, okay, I think now it's obvious. It's b5 move. So when knight takes b5 was played. So the question is now whether to play knight takes b5 or bishop takes b5. So in this position, Botvinnik decided to take it with the bishop. It might not immediately become clear why, but we'll see. So this and then rook c7, rook on the seventh rank. The plan is very simple. Play rook b7 and bring other rook to c7, then play rook a7 and it should be game over. So black played rook c8 in this position. So now it will become clear. So he played rook b7 check, king a8, and now it will become clear why he wanted to keep the knight and not the bishop. So I'll put this as a quiz. You will get 3 minutes once again, and then you have to tell me what would you do. So this is white to play, and your time starts now. All right, so good number of you found the correct idea. So why I wanted to keep the knight is because, see, some of you played rook into c8. So the problem with this move is bishop into c8, rook is attacked, rook into g7, then bishop into a6. And yeah, this is dangerous for you now. Suddenly, I'm not that big fan of white's position with these connected pass pawns. And black is back in the game. So you don't want that. So, but as I said, good number of you found the correct idea, which is rook into d7 and rook into c1, then knight into b5. Just imagine your bishop here on b5. What is it doing? Nothing. But imagine that knight on b5. And look at it. It helps in this rook a7 type of ideas. And then rook b7 check, maybe knight c7 check might come after that. Knight d6 check might come after that if the king goes to c8. The knight is very useful in the attack. Even though we can say that there are so less pieces left on the board, but yeah, even with that rook, knight, and pawn, white is able to create enough counterplay, enough attacking chances, and then he went on to win the game. So the later part is not important. He just collected those pawns and he won without much difficulty. But the important thing here was, let's go back. So in this position, the thing is that white's pieces are active. Black's, what is that knight doing on a8? And because of that pawn on a6, there is that lack of space on the queen side. But unless you open the files to activate those pieces, you won't be able to do much. So it's important that, so pawn play. So pawn break is of course one of the parts of pawn play. So we have to go for pawn play so that we can open that file. And then those rooks can maybe do something. But we cannot just do it right now because the pawn will go for free. And rook c7 is also not possible because of knight. So we need to prepare for it. b1. Knight a3. If not knight c7, then just b5. Open that file, then put the pressure through that without any sacrifice. And then knight c7 was split. But that's fine. He's ready to sacrifice the pawn because he can get the rook on the seventh rank. Then rook b7 check is coming and it will be too tough for him. This was, yeah, we saw some earlier positions about pawn play in which we can activate the bishop. Here it was pawn play so that we can activate our rooks, especially the new file is being opened and that allows us to get that rook on the seventh rank. And that gives us huge advantage. Right, so a simpler game or a simpler example than Petrosian overall, but knight b1, knight a3 was not that easy. But still, after the idea becomes clear, yeah, it was quite straightforward. Okay, so now let me go ahead with this one. This example is not from any famous game, but still quite an instructive one. Let me go to the position and set it up. Here we go. Let me flip the board, and you will have, yeah, about, I think, 3 minutes still should be enough. Yeah, black to play, and you have some time. All right, let's go ahead. So this is quite an interesting position. We have castled on the king side. Our opponent is trying to do something on the king side, maybe with g4, h4. Of course, on the queen side. This is not really a threat because queen takes e3 is coming, but you still have to keep an eye on it. This king is on d1, but The position seems to be a bit on the close side, so it's a good question whether we can do something about that. But the main thing about this position is number one, at times our own pawns can restrict our pieces. How? Because of the pawn on e6, because of the pawn on d5, because of the pawn on b5, the activity of this bishop is severely restricted. Because of this particular pawn on d5, see, if there was no pawn on d5 in this position, I think every one of you would have played knight d5 in this position. Just why not bring the knight to the outpost? So, and if there was no pawn on d5, then this bishop of yours will be extremely active. Like, just look at that piece, how much of an important role it can play in the defense. Once you realize that, then the move becomes clear here. It is d4, sacrificing the pawn so that we can get that knight on the outpost square. We can get that bishop on that diagonal. We can get this rook on the open file. All of the pieces, all these pieces are getting activated, which were restricted by our own pawn, that pawn on d5. If our opponent doesn't capture this, right? So the only thing which would change is maybe this rook would not get active through this file, but nobody can stop that knight from getting active to the central square. Nobody can stop this bishop from getting active. And let's say if he takes it with a queen or something like that, knight d5 with bishop c6 next move, with rook f d8 next move. Look at that. Because in this position, let's just imagine. Let's play something like rook f d8. This is not a threat, so we are not even considering it. And if he plays something like queen d4, now the knight has to, okay, maybe, yeah, queen d4. Now the knight has to move because queen c1 is not a threat. So knight will go to a8. Or let's just imagine, let's just say bishop can go to c6. Let's forget about c takes b6 for a minute. Let's not consider that. And he goes queen d4, and we go knight d7 in this position. And let's say he plays some random move like a3, and then we play rook f8. Rook is on d8. What is it doing? Nothing. Bishop is on c6. What is it doing? Nothing. Knight is on d7, completely restricted. So especially the long range pieces, right? Because of this pawn, how much they're suffering. And the knight, of course, we're looking for those key outpost squares, the central outpost squares for our. That d4 opens up all of these opportunities for us. The bishop on this diagonal, the knight on the central outpost square, and if that pawn is captured, then this rook. And sometimes we can even put a rook on d8 to maybe push this pawn at some point if our opponent is not capturing. So, yeah. So till now, it's how one pawn play can actually. It's not just double bishops are there, so we activate the bishop. No, how one pawn move can, or one pawn sacrifice for that matter here, can activate three distinct different pieces which would not have been possible had the pawn been on d5. And the added thing for us is that the king is on d1. So if you are able to open the d file, then the pressure which we are putting on the opponent will be significant. Right, so d4 and the advantage. Right, so yeah, let's just try to sum these things. So what we did is we actually started with that uh, with the example where f6 followed by e5 was played. If you remember, we had double bishop advantage, and I told you that we should look at the piece play, how the position is, and if we have double bishop advantage, we should open the position. Then the second position which I gave you as a quiz was about the pawn sacrifice, playing c4 then c5, so that we can activate this bishop, and it will be a win for us. And then it was the Petrosian game, the beautiful a6 move to stop the queen side counterplay, and then pushing the pawns on the king side for the attack. Then the Botvinnik game, those two rooks were there. He wants to activate them. The pawn is in front of it, so he went knight b1, knight a3, and then b5, and then got the activity. And then in this position, sacrificing the pawn to activate three different pieces and attack the king. All right, so I'll see you next time. Till then, take care. Bye.